Welcome to part 4 of Vegas Pro Essentials. Now that you've got all your media ready to go, let's dive right into editing in the timeline. The quickest way to start editing is to drag and drop clips into the timeline. An outline appears, and wherever you release the media, a new event will appear. Remember, sources on the timeline are known as events in Vegas Pro, where other NLEs may call them clips. It's also worth noting that as you drag shots into the timeline, the default behavior is to snap the incoming event to the timeline cursor, or the other events in the timeline. You'll see these indications as you drag the events. This snapping function is controlled by this little magnet in the editing toolbar, which you can turn on and off. It's important, so more on snapping later. Now that you've assembled a timeline, let's review what's been created. As this was originally an empty timeline, a new video track was created to host your events. This is what you see in the track list. To review the events in the edit, you have the timeline cursor. You can click at different points to jump to specific events, and the video preview updates as you move the timeline cursor. You can also drag the timeline cursor to scrub through the events, and this updates in the video preview. To play the edit, move the timeline cursor to where you want to start and press spacebar. To stop the playback, press spacebar again. Now we're all using computers with varying graphics and CPU processing, so your playback and interaction may vary. If you're seeing playback problems, one way to optimize the performance is to go to the video preview. The default quality setting alters the resolution and quality of the video preview. The default is set to preview auto, which should work for most systems. But if your hardware is struggling, or you work with 4K or even 8K video, you can drop the quality to keep working smoothly. As a reassurance, this setting is for playback and interaction. It will not affect the quality of the final rendered video. That will always be rendered at best quality. Since we're here, you can also zoom into the video preview with the drop-down menu. You may find it easier to navigate around the viewer just with the mouse. You can scroll the middle mouse wheel, and wherever you place the cursor will be the focal point for the zoom. Holding down the middle mouse button lets you move around the image. And finally, double-clicking the middle mouse button centralizes the preview and zooms to fit the window. Let's focus back on the edit. One of the other things you can do in the timeline is rearrange the events to change the flow of the story. For example, you can grab one event and move it around another. Notice the events snap together using the snapping function mentioned earlier. You can then create a selection over the events and close the gap in the edit. So you can accomplish quite a bit with just the normal edit tool in the timeline. But there are other timeline tools in Vegas Pro which can make tasks like this even simpler. In the timeline toolbar, change to the Shuffle tool and try moving the shots again. The Shuffle tool moves the events around the timeline, but automatically shuffles the other events, making rearranging painless. Just remember to switch back to the normal edit tool when you're done. Now, aside from being able to rearrange shots to alter the storyline, you can also change the pace of your video by making shots longer or shorter in the edit. For instance, we only want to have this action in the event and cut out everything else. So place the timeline cursor at the beginning of the event and it will change to the trim cursor. Click and drag the beginning of the event to the right to start it later. You can choose the start frame by looking at the video preview. And similarly, you can trim the end of the event by clicking and dragging the edge to the left. Once again, the video preview will show you the last frame of the event. So this event starts and finishes where you want, but you're left with gaps in the edit. You can close these gaps manually by dragging events and snapping them, or alternatively, you can use auto ripple. As the name suggests, auto ripple will move the contents of your timeline as you're editing. This is an incredibly powerful way to speed up your editing, and it will save you so much time when you practice using it. So let's use it to get rid of the gaps. Double-click the gaps to select the region in the timeline and press Delete. It's important to use the Delete key and not Backspace. Backspace won't work. Notice that as the gaps are deleted across every track, the timeline gets shorter. The edit will only move if auto ripple is enabled when doing an operation. Let's trim some more shots, but also using auto ripple. You can drag the start or end of an event as before, but as soon as you release the cursor, the timeline will ripple. Just remember that when you're done, turn off auto ripple to prevent any unnecessary timing changes in your edit. The last editing function you'll cover in this video is splitting events. So instead of trimming the start or end of an event to a shortened time, you place the timeline cursor at the desired frame of the event and click the split button in the timeline toolbar. This is also assigned to the S hotkey. The event splits in two, and you can choose what to do with either event. You can delete the second part, but remember, with auto ripple off, you'll get a gap. And with auto ripple on, deleting the event automatically closes the gap. Lastly, splitting events is selection-based. When dealing with multiple tracks in the timeline, only the selected event or events will be split under the timeline cursor. If nothing is selected in the timeline, all events, regardless of which track they're on, will be split under the timeline cursor. So those are some of the most important editing functions of Vegas Pro to get you cutting straight away. In the next video, you'll learn a different way of editing, which will help you work with loads of footage and bigger timelines. See you shortly.